Enjoyed a very long day of work and I'm back again with the 10th grade. So thank you all for coming. I'm just going to wait on the 10th grade. So this is the culmination of, I guess, the last expedition the 10th graders will do before portfolio. And they have written, they have practiced, and they are acting in their one-man, one-woman shows, their monologues, which is really an homage and a celebration of community. I think that a lot of times when we think about a migration, we really think of people crossing physical borders, but we migrate every day. Whether it is on the train to get here, whether it's on the metro, whether it is a change in attitude, whether it's a change in belief, whether it's even a change in how we see the world, because I think that those are migrations too. And those are just as difficult as the physical migration some of us have taken to get here to DC or here to this country. I'm a migrant too. I'm from the South, and DC is a very different place than Georgia, let me tell you. So let's remember 10th grade to respect each other, to pay attention to the monologues before you. We have 2 people who must leave, and I hope that everything is, one of those people, I hope everything is okay with that, and so, we just send that person our well wishes who has to leave, but I expect us all to pretty much stay in place. A couple of other people have said that they have to go, and I've spoken to parents, but let's be sure that we're respectful of everybody who takes the stage. Everybody is nervous, or some of us are nervous, more nervous than others, so be sure that we're respectful, okay? Okay. Thank you, and our first person will take the stage. As soon as the first person sits, the next person should go up. Okay, thank you. Here, I give you migration monologue.
Turn the lights on. The lights on. I have to go upstairs and find out. You just have to chill out. Chill out. I'm scared for you. Don't say that. You got the Zoom.
Go Zoom. It was the 3rd time I tried to cross. We had been walking for hours. I started to question if the coyote knew where we were. Run, you bastards! I heard the coyote yell. La mira, said the man who was next to me. I started to run. Looked down at my shoes, ripped. I could see my toes. I thought of my children as I ran as fast as I could. Officials released the dogs. I saw one of them throw itself against the man who was next to me. What if I would have been that man? I had promised myself if I didn't make it across the border this time, I would never try to cross it again. Would I have fought against a dog to escape? Probably. But I was dehydrated from all that walking. Yo sí me hubiera dado guerra con el chucho. The faces of Araceli, Sergio, and Jenny appeared in my mind. They, my children, they were the ones that gave me the strength. But physically, I didn't want to continue. At last, we managed to escape. I was surprised that the woman that was pregnant, had made it. I knew that this wouldn't be the end of it. I knew that they would search again to arrest us and then to deport us. We walked a little slower. The bad thing was that we lost people in our encounter with immigration. Now they knew that we were out here. We were looking for a place out of the sight of people and out of the sun to rest. We slept 5 hours. And at night, we walked. Which was a good thing, because we didn't have to walk under the burning sun. But night was mysterious. It was death. I was starting to regret everything and go back home where I belong, with my children. I hope that this coyote knew where he was going. I think this coyote was taking us a different way than other coyotes had. O tal vez solo no me recordaba de los lugares que había estado anteriormente. Pero eso ya no importaba. Porque la tercera vez es la vencida. I remember having the pregnant woman by my side. I was angry at her husband. he didn't take care of her like he should have. She was already 7 months pregnant. We arrived to a few hills. I stayed behind with the woman. She was tired. I remember yelling at her, "Vamos, mujer, apúrate, los estamos quedando atrás." And I remember her saying, "Déjeme aquí, ya no puedo más, me duele la espalda, déjeme aquí." The pain in her voice told me that I had to help her. I couldn't leave her over here. She was dehydrated too, and she carried another life inside of her. "Levántese, vamos, súbase a mi lomo." I got her on my back. I don't know how she didn't complain so much after so many hops I had to make. We arrived to the pit of the hills and the rails of the train. Here, we wait for the train. Obviously, it won't stop for us, so we're gonna have to jump on, said the coyote. "Y agárrense bien," he said. When the train passed, I think it was going about 100 miles per hour. Maybe the dehydration was making it slow. I put the woman on my back again. The best thing was that she was skinny. She didn't have a big tummy. I told her to hold on tight to me, but I was aware that it wouldn't be that easy to jump on with her. I saw others started to get momentum and then to jump. I, with a woman on my back and 2 men by my side, jumped at the same time. The woman's weight pulled me back, but I managed to grab onto a bar, turned around, and let her off my back. I saw one of the others jump. All we felt was a shook on the train. We all knew what had happened. We heard a scream. The life was being sucked out of that man. Under my breath, I thanked God that it hadn't been me. The woman thanked me. She kissed my hand and began to pray. Later at dawn, I saw a man at the edge of the train. I kept waking him up, telling him he was about to fall. I fell asleep. 10 minutes after, I woke up, just in time to see him fall right under the wheels of the train. When the train stopped, we quickly got off, so no one would see us. We hid. After, we just kept walking. Eventually, we got to Texas. No one ever saw us, luckily. Some friends of my childhood picked me up and took me to North Carolina, and then to Washington, D.C. with my father. I never saw the people again on the trip. Some of them must have got lost or died, or some of them must have found their way back home.
Well, I moved to the United States because my husband wasn't here. He moved here 8 years ago from Ethiopia. I was 38 years old when I first moved in here. The reason why I moved here was because I don't want to raise my kids without a father. And also I don't want them to daydream about their father every day and have a tough time and not being with him. Another reason why I moved here is to seek a better education for my kids. I didn't have the same opportunity when I grew up in Ethiopia. So I want them to have a better life. My life in Ethiopia was good, except that I was separated from my husband. It was convenient for me there to communicate with the community with my own language, which is Amharic. Other challenge after I moved here was communicating with English-speaking people. I understand some of it, but I cannot speak. The hardest thing about the move was leaving my hometown and especially my mom. I want for my kids to be crystal clear that I want them to learn hard and work towards success. Again, I didn't have the same opportunity. If I had that, I wouldn't be sitting home without a job. So I want them to learn hard and help themselves and also help us because we're getting older.
Yeah, I like to cook. So, I started being a man and handling my own responsibilities as well. I remember I couldn't cook with my superior mother while I was a junior in high school. No one was around to help me and my mother out. So she had to teach me how to cook. My mother once told me you gotta learn how to do things on your own, so it's gonna be on your own soon. That's when I stepped to the plate and asked her, "May you teach me how to cook?" My mother was so happy after the fact that I asked her the question. She was smiling as hard as if we won the lottery. After that, my mother started teaching me how to do other things. How to cook family dinners, family meals, even Christmas dinners, even meals when she was sick. This was good for me because I didn't know what she wanted to cook, what she wanted to eat. So she told me. So I cooked for her while she was sick. I was so happy for the reasons I could cook now that my mother was sick. I could cook for her. I know my mother felt more relaxed after she taught me all the things she wanted me to learn from the outside world and not just from my manhood. I usually know it's hard work for a woman teaching a man how to be a woman teaching her son how to be a man. And I appreciate everything.
I decided to go to New York. I told my dad. My mom though looked at me as I was about to commit suicide. That night, I went online and I tried to buy the tickets, but unfortunately, they were sold out. That was my second attempt to go to New York, but unfortunately, it was a fail. My second, a week passed, and my mom asked me what was wrong. I told her that nobody believed me that I wanted to go to New York. Then she started yelling at me, telling me how I didn't appreciate what I had. So I did, but if you have a daughter, you want to be independent and not always rely on your family too much. So that was another failure, and yes, I'm still in Puerto Rico. A month passed, and I finally bought my one-way ticket to New York. I told my dad to take me, and he did. As soon as I got to the airport, we all said our goodbyes, and it was a bit sad, but they had to learn that I wasn't their little girl no more. Then I knew once I stepped into the airplane, that would be my and my daughter's journey. Yeah.
I've been a DC girl my whole life. Back in my days, us DC girls were known as strong, powerful, and ghetto. But as time progressed, I could not portray the same traits. I lost Marky in 1980, my daddy in 87, my mommy in 98, 2 days before my beautiful grandson was born. Losing Marky, as the cliche goes, I felt like half of me was missing. And still, after all these years, I feel the same pain. I remember the night he died like it was yesterday. I was a nurse, and my sister calls me and tells me that Marky overdosed on crystal meth. When I heard that, I wanted to die myself. All I could think about was how I'm supposed to take care of his 2-year-old daughter. I don't even like kids, but I love Marky enough to have one. It was his idea. We were 19 at the time, and I was at my little brother's basketball game. And I was cheering on the bench, screaming, "Go, Carlton, go!" And this beautiful, light-skinned, tall, brown-eyed man walks up to me and taps me on the shoulder and asks me if he could sit. I said, "Go ahead, it's a free country." And he laughs at my comment. We sat in silence for 2 minutes, and then he asked me my name. I said, "Carolyn," and then ever since, we talked. He walked me home and gave me his number. And then the next day he came and asked me on a date. The only answer I could give was yes. But then my father died from lung cancer. I didn't know how to react from his death. It happened so fast. But then again, I'm not saying I did not care, but it was hard to show any feelings because he mistreated me. He didn't love me like how he loved the others because I looked like him and not like my beautiful caramel-skinned mother. But out of all their deaths, my mother and I had the greatest connection. Her death affected me the most. When she died, I didn't know how to handle it. But I remember our long nights on the phone at 11 o'clock just talking, very intimate conversations. I remember one time she called me so we could just sing Sam Cooke. We tore it up, oh my goodness. We was up all night just singing. I was born by the river in a little tent. And just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change won't come. Every day going to work, that was the song I had to sing. It was the struggle, I swear it was. It was. Especially raising my 2-year-old daughter. She was only 2 when her father died. And still to this day, she did not speak on his death. I feel like it was my fault. Instead of us growing to love each other, I feel like we resented each other instead. I still ask the question why that is, but I never get the answer to the question. And after that dilemma in my lifetime, I feel like my siblings had to rely on me for everything, even though they were adults themselves. But hey, I gotta do what I gotta do. I was the oldest. Okay. I had to pay for my daughter's college, and I have to pay for 7 people that lived under the same roof. It was hard, but all I could do was sing. It's a long time coming, but I know change won't come.
Oh my God, I'm next. Oh, that was good.
I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, I stared out the window of the taxi and was amazed at what I saw. This was a new world that I saw for the first time. Everything looked so perfect. It was something I had never seen before in my life. Tall buildings that looked like they were going to reach the sun. Once I got out the taxi, I was in a different place of the city. It looked like where families lived in the American commercials that you could see on TV. I went into my friend's house that I moved back in El Salvador. They had a lot of pictures up on the wall filled with their family faces. You could tell they cleaned because I was staying over. I thought I was going to sleep on the sofa, but I couldn't because they already had other people staying over. The bad thing about it was I had to sleep on the floor. My back hurt the first week because the floor was hard. Days passed as I stayed at my friend's house. We went to look for a job. Me and her tried many places, but nobody was hiring at the time. I was depressed that I couldn't find a job to help my family back home. I missed taking care of my nephews and nieces. I miss El Salvador and friends. Eventually, I found a job at taking care of kids for one of my friend's aunts. Every day I had to cook lunch for them. I remember smelling eggs and beans, and for some reason the kids didn't complain about eating it every day. It was the only thing I could afford for them. At least they didn't starve. Their mom would come at home from work, and I walked home alone. Once I got my first check, I got excited. That day I got $150. I've never gotten that much money for work. My friend told me that she was going to Washington, D.C. because her family was there. I had to make a choice of staying alone or going with her. I made up my mind I was going with her. I made up my mind because my friend told me that there was no work in Washington. I went on a plane. I was scared because I've never been on one before. In my head, I had to keep telling myself that I had to do it for my family. It felt as if we were flying through the clouds. That's the whole ride. Once we go to Washington, D.C., I saw the monument. It's as if every city here had a big structure to show who they are. Washington looked different than Los Angeles. The way the houses were built were very different from there. There weren't a lot of Hispanics like Los Angeles. One thing I did like was that there was a lot of Salvadorans in Washington. Now I had to focus on finding a job to support my family since I decided to leave my other job. Once I got money, I helped my brothers and sisters back home. They were now not struggling anymore because of me. I felt proud of myself. And when I called them the next day, they sounded really excited for me. They now knew that they can count on me.
Go, Michael. Don't take this.
I still got the bruises that he gave me. I can still see the burns that he left me, the scars he gave me. I have to live with it every day. But I'm still going. The only thing that keeps me motivated are his words. All the things he said I would never do, I did it. But he said too much. So much that it would be impossible for me to complete on my own. One of the things he used to say was, without him, I could have been dead. I don't know what that really meant, but I think he tricked me into saying yes to everything he said. Every day, he would slap me. When I did something wrong, he would hit me with his belt. And when it involved schoolwork, he would light a match and he would burn my toes and fingers. Next thing you know, he's laying down next to me, saying it was for my own good. Wasn't it? For every homework assignment I didn't turn in, he would burn me for a couple of seconds. That really isn't necessary for kids to learn. But I guess he didn't think when he did it. He was always drunk. I could tell by the smell on his breath. On late nights, he would go out drinking with his friends. His friends were like his family. And knowing that he has a family of his own, he treated us like trash. When he gets home, he forces my mother to have sex with him. I can hear her saying that she was on her period, but he wouldn't care. I knew what was going on, but I acted like I didn't. We all suffered, and after we suffered, he left us. He left us to die. The day he left, my mother cried. She cried because the only thing he gave us was a place to stay. And without him, we wouldn't have anywhere to go. My father never allowed her to work because he didn't want her to cheat on him. But hey, he probably cheated on her more than once. But luckily, my mother had the strength to move on from that. I don't know how she did, but for me, I didn't move on. My mother had the energy to go look for a job. She was able to work every day because she didn't have anything to do. After all the search, she was able to find a job that paid her enough to support me and and my brother. As I was growing up, we were always traveling. Almost every 4 months, we moved to a different location. By the time I turned 19, I graduated from high school, and that was a big success for me because I proved my father wrong. He used to say that school was too much for me and that I'm gonna drop out and work with him. He was so sure that I would drop out. Why would he burn me for missing school assignments? He also talked about me going to college. That I never got the chance to do after I graduated high school because my mother couldn't afford it. So I stayed home and, like always, kept moving. We went to all different types of locations. We went to Baltimore and stayed there a couple of times. I think my mom tried to find a decent place for us to stay, and by the time we reached D.C., we stopped moving. I never questioned my mother on why we kept moving. I used to think that if I asked her, she would kick me out. I didn't really know why or anything like that. I never had anything important to do. I didn't have a job. I didn't really have any close friends. I used to go to the park and play baseball with some neighborhood kids. That was it. By the time I turned 21, I tried looking for a job. I was always a quiet person, so it was hard for me to get a job. Even though it was hard for me, I kept on trying. But after all those searches, I finally found a place that would hire me. I started working for a bread shop down the street from where I live. It was a good job for me because I knew the owner and it wasn't that far. I got paid a decent amount, enough for me to give some to my mom and still have little for me to spend on. After a while, we started to save up money. Then by the time I reached 23, I was able to afford a place of my own. So I moved out and left my mother on her own. To this very day, I will never forget all the things my mother did for me.
This is the country of opportunities. What a beautiful place. It's so different from where I came from. It's so hot. In America, it's so cold. America is so cold. I first came to America in August 1981 to get a master's in social work and business administration, and to look for any opportunities that come in my path. With these opportunities, I'll be here wanting to be and hold my parents all the way. I remember when I was a kid. I remember when I was a kid and I was going to school, enjoying life, and helping my parents when I was a kid. Life was hard, but I made it through it. I had to help my parents while going to school. My parents wouldn't go to school, so my parents to succeed on the trial. There was a civil war back when I was 15 years old. It made a lot of people with me. This was to me, a lot of people died. It was so hard because some people out there died cousins that I used to live like seeing the war between the Ravens, tribes, and Nigeria. During the war, me and my brother went to the bucket to sell things so we could survive. Luckily, me and my friends, brothers, and sisters survived. Survived the war. The war ended in the 1970s by the Organization for African Unity that wanted to bring peace between the tribes. After the war, I went back to finish high school. And after I finished high school, I went to Nigeria for 3 years. During those 3 years, I gained admission to the temporary. I came as a student visa to Penn State University to study business administration, majoring in international accounting. After 1 year of Penn State University, I decided to go to Washington, D.C. to transfer to Southeastern University. I was in Southeastern University for about a year. I was not really impressed with this school, so I transferred to the University of Bristol, Columbia. I was going to transfer to UDC. I would take the security guard to show me further my studies. It was where I graduated in 1985 for the bachelor in business administration major with 5 years. And that's when I became a resident of America, child further education at the University of Springfield was the pleasure to much.
So I just wanted to keep us mindful of time, which is important because we want everyone to go. Thank you all for being so supportive.
Dear Diary, today is February 14, 1996. It's Valentine's Day and it's also the day in which my boyfriend of 5 years proposed to me. I'm very excited. I can barely sit still in this chair. You don't get married too often, right? I'm very happy, but I'm also very nervous. You see, he's currently in Washington, D.C. working with his father. He asked me to leave Mexico to be with him. I'm willing to go, but I have to tell my mother. It's going to be really difficult. What if she says no? How could you possibly send your only child to the States? I don't know the culture and I don't speak the language. How could I ever take back my answer to the proposal? I can't just call Arturo and be like, hey, I changed my mind, let's not get married. I have to think about it. I'll wait a couple of days and I'll approach her about it. Dear Diary, with sweaty hands and nervous footsteps, I finally told my mother that I wanted to leave. I was so scared. My heart was like a drum. But she said to me that if it's what I wanted, if it's what I really wanted, then I could go. Very soon I shall be in D.C. with Arturo. I hope everything goes well. Well, I should be off to pack my bags in. Dear Diary, I feel so alone. I never imagined that me moving here would be so difficult. I never imagined that it would make me so unhappy. I'm always bored and with nothing to do except to sit and watch TV shows that I don't even understand. I don't know my way around. I don't have any friends. I don't have a job and I don't understand anything. I barely speak to my husband. He always comes home really late and really tired. And when we speak, it's usually small talk and for small amounts of time. My mother let me come here under one condition and one condition only. That if it's what I really wanted, then I could go. And to be honest, I don't want it anymore. I want to leave. I'm going to tell him that I want to leave. It's going to be really difficult and I'm scared of what he'll say, but I have to do it. Dear Diary, so here I am back in Mexico. My pregnancy had been very difficult. That's right, I found out I was pregnant. I don't think me hanging my head over the toilet 24/7 was exactly fun. But right now, my daughter Sharita is sleeping soundly in her room. My husband came back to Mexico to come and see her. And I made the decision to go back. I decided that there's no point in being married if you're apart from each other. I'm hoping that everything will be better. Well, here goes nothing. It's been years since I've updated since my last entry diary. I learned how to speak English, and I pushed myself very hard. I got a job at a restaurant, and eventually I got promoted to be manager. I had another child in 2002, my son Dario. The baby that I had in 97 is almost 16 now. I moved from an apartment to a house. I'm still with my husband. And now I only go to Mexico for vacation. DC, although it was really difficult for me at first, it became my home.
Can you hear me? Alright. I stopped at the PS when I thought about my aunt leaving us and moving to America. I thought about moving to Puerto Rico and a good life and have a better job. Here in Salvador, I made lots of tortillas to sell, and that really didn't earn me a lot of money. Era muy poquito. Es muy difícil. Poquito por poquito, poquito por poquito, I fed you not a lot because of the little food we had. I have 2 jobs that would actually pay me money. I saved a lot just to move here. I worked hard. I put a lot of effort into working hard and saving a lot of money to move here. My mother, my family, they didn't see it. They didn't see my work effort to saving my money to come here. They just made me feel ashamed, and I was disappointed to myself. I had to wash clothes, cocinar, and shop just to take care of you. La escuela, it was my choice. It was my choice to finish high school. My mother, so make sure you stay in school. My mother, she didn't want me to go to school because she thought that I wouldn't make a future out of it. Papa wanted to move here to have a better life. We decided to move here but we didn't know how to take you because it's muy peligroso. When I moved, I left you food, money, and a place to live. So for the time being, so you stay with your abuela. Yo te prometí to bring you when I had the chance. Yo siempre pienso sobre ti, like what you could be doing or what could be happening to you. Yo vine a Miami, where my aunt came to live. Living here was difficult because it was hard to adjust to a new place, and everybody spoke English except for me. I got a job where I had to clean houses. I got paid plenty, and yo me mudé to Maryland with tu hermana. Then I moved to Miami back again, and I was pregnant again. I had your little brother. We settled here for quite a bit and moved back to Miami. Cuando tú viniste, mi vida estaba completa. My life was complete because I don't have to work harder than I used to. If you work hard to get something done, then you gonna get it.
When did it all start? When did it all start? That's a good question. It all started when I was 13 years old. In the month of December 1983. This was the year my mother and I decided to come to this country. You know, my mother named Teresa Lazo, she had just separated from my father. My father had cheated on her. You know, what type of father would do this? It's not a gentleman. You know, my mother, she was a hard worker. For her, she didn't deserve this. Why did my father do this? Why? Now my mother was not only a single mother, but she was a single mother who had taken care of 5 sons. I have 4 brothers. Names Francisco, Fidel, Oscar, and Miguel. You know, we all tried to receive the best education we could, but it wasn't easy. You know, there wasn't that many good schools in El Salvador, so I wanted to make a change. You know, there was some times where I had to be the man in my family. I had to bring food to the table. I had to take the place of my father. You know, there was sometimes when I saw my father slap my mother, sometimes I saw her face bleeding, her body was bruised. You know, I couldn't stand seeing this. You know, my childhood was a difficult experience. I had to go through a lot of ups and downs in my life. Now, at the age of 12 years old, I was working in a coffee shop. You know, I had to work hard. I had to observe my mother, how she worked, and I learned from that. You know, many people these days in this country, they don't, you know, they have the advantage of receiving the best education they can, but they don't use it as they can. You know, you could become doctors, you could become activists, you become anything you want, leaders of the future, but they don't use the advantage they can. You know, I had to go through a hard work to come here. You know, when I came here, my first job was a carpenter. I was a carpenter. It was a job that I never wanted to have. So I was a carpenter when I came here. It's a job that I never wanted to have. And I had to go through a lot. You know, there were days, nights, when I was in the forest. I had to sleep in the night. You know, I never gave up. I was always by the side with my mother. I never gave up. There was also times in the desert, you know, I had to sleep under trees in the night where there was all animals, scorpions, everything. I had to go through all of this. Why? Because of my family. I did it because of my family. I didn't come to this country because I wanted my life to be better. I came because of my family. This was what motivated me. And what I always tell my son is, education is the most important thing in life. Without it, you will become nothing in life. You know, you have to use the advantage you have of trying to receive the best education you can, because without it, you will get nowhere in life. And every time I see this flag, I see hope in the country. Even though I had to go through a lot of work, you know, I'll always tell my son, you could become anything you want. You have to accomplish your dreams. You know, never be afraid. Keep on going. And this is how you will get to the place you want to be. I don't want you to go through all the struggles I had to go through. You know, you could become a great person without going through all that struggle. Keep on working hard and you will get where you want to be. And you know, young adults today, they don't open their minds and see. If only they could see that with education you could keep on going on. You could keep on going on forward. This is what I tell my son every time. And you know, every day I come from work, I have to wake up early. You know, sometimes when you ask me, "Oh, how was your day?" You know, I respond by saying, "Oh, it was good." But you never know what happened during the whole day. I could have had a terrible day. I could have had, you know, a tough day. But I do it for you. I love you.
When I lived in Prince George's County, I was 14. I was a freshman. I took algebra, like every other freshman, and I failed. I had a teacher who was not really responsive to her students who communicated, so I decided not to communicate. I decided to skip class. I decided to not come to school. I had lack of enthusiasm. I didn't care. When I had to find out that I had moved to Orange County in Gordonsville, Virginia, I found out that when I had to go to 10th grade there, I found out that I failed that algebra class. I was thinking, why? why did I fail my class? Then I realized that I didn't care. That's why. So when I actually went to Orange County, I had a teacher. Her name was Miss Edie. She helped me understand algebra. She listened to me. She cared about how she wanted me to pass. So ever since then, in Orange County, it wasn't just Miss Edie, it was the rest of my teachers too. It made me realize that education is important, and I tell you guys that every day that I in Jeremiah, how important education is. I want you to realize that you need to go to college, get good grades, and pass. Just know that even though you might not do as good as you can, try your hardest and don't be like me.
Come on, girl, tip. Girl, tip, girl.
It was 1959 when I came to D.C. Parents couldn't afford to send me to college, so I came to D.C. to look for a job. It was segregated back in Birmingham, Alabama. We had to sit in the back of the bus. Yep, I was a Rosa Parks now. We all was tired. Some didn't listen, but I did, because I was scared. I didn't like this, so I moved to D.C. to be successful and look for a job. I ended up working for the government for many years. They paid me good money too. I thought I had everything, but I was wrong. And it was 1961 when I married Charles Curtis. He would treat me so right. We would dance. He would take me out to the club and we would dance till we can't dance no more. As years came to pass, he changed. I had 4 sons with Charles. One died at birth. He was a day old. After that day, I thought I couldn't live no more. He was like the baby I never met. Charles became very abusive and an alcoholic. He would come home and beat me every time he would come home drunk. He was never there for his kids. And when he was there for his kids, he would beat them. I witnessed it. He would come home after a long day from drinking, and he would beat them for nothing. I couldn't watch this, so I called the cops on him many times. When I called the cops on him, he would throw hot water on me. I finally left Charles and joined New Southern Rock Baptist Church. I ended up retiring from the government and started working at the church and lived my life without a lover.
I was scared. I didn't know what to think. Things was going through my head, some good, some bad. Do I have to keep looking for questions that I'm having? Am I going? Did I get in? Is that the school that I'm ready for? My fingers felt around the paper as if they could give me an answer, yes or no. I passed it to my mother. As she opened the mail, I started to shake. I started to sweat. Man, it was real hard, just standing there looking. As she opened the mail, her eyes got wide. She said, yes, 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 baby girl, you got in. From that moment on, I knew I would be the only one in my family to graduate. As weeks flew by, I started to think wild and crazy things. Some good, some bad, but most of all exciting.
I could not wait to be on my own. But when I got in that car and started driving, got a little bit down the highway, I was already homesick. I missed my friends, everything. I told my mother, stop, stop, stop. I don't want to go. The feeling of being alone, no ears to talk to, no arms to hug, no heart to love. I ain't want to go. All I can remember was my mother telling me, baby girl, as long as I'm your mother, you will always have a heart to love and one will always love you back. Remember that. I still ain't want to go. She told me, you will meet new people, friends, they will mean a lot to you. But I just didn't want to go. I got up the courage to go. Got back in the car. As we pulled up to my new home away from home, away from home, the feeling of new beginnings. I knew from this moment on that at the end of my journey, many, many people would be proud of me. My mother, my older sister that didn't make it to college, everybody. I have now been in college for 3 years. I only have 1 more to go. Like my mother said, I was going to meet good people, new friends. I have a lot of them. But some of them, I just couldn't be buddy-buddy with, you know. Let me tell you, man, this one girl, I just couldn't be buddy. Man, hold up, wait a minute. I'm not even gonna go there. Just know, everybody's not your friend. That was a hard lesson I had to learn on my own. But now I have been at Livingstone College for 3 years, and I only have 1 more to go. And I will be the first one in my family to graduate.
When the war began. Every day I would run home, avoiding trouble. You know, I only had 2 uniform shirts and a uniform pants for school. Every day I would wash that same pair of pants for tomorrow, and the same shirt for the day after. Yeah, we were so poor for food. Well, you know, Dubram, it didn't taste like how we have in our cabinet. We had to soak salt in water, and that's what we called it. Yeah, life in Vietnam wasn't all that, but I cherished it. I had 8 brothers and sisters, a dad, a mom, and a stepmom. Yeah, Grandpa remarried. Man, your stepmom was the strictest ladies I've ever known. She didn't let you wipe your dirty fingers on your clothes, you know, all that stuff. So Grandpa and your step-grandma died while going home from a gambling event. So that's when me, and Yong decided to go to the U.S. I was about 16. I came into the U.S. about 1980, and I attended Wilson High School. I said earlier that I was poor, right? Yeah, I didn't have a lot of fancy clothes for school. I went to thrift shops to get my clothes. And I was cool, right? Well, lucky you, I was made fun of.
Yeah, I made some few friends, but I forgot what their names were. Throughout the whole traveling thing, I got so lonely. Every day, I would think to myself, was coming to America a good choice? Did I make a good choice? I would sometimes think of quitting, going back home. Man, when I was in 12th grade, I took the SAT for the first time. It was the hardest test ever. So that's when I gave one school. With the high school degree, I got a job at a hotel in Tysons. My job was to clean up offices. What have I learned? I learned that you can do it throughout the hard times. I don't want you to be like me, lazy and not go to college. Most importantly, I learned that I had love for my family. When I was with them, I didn't know I had all this emotion in me. Without love, it's like the world without summer.
Una llamada lo cambió todo. On March 1994, the call I got from my mother, it was the biggest change in my life. Who knew I would get a chance to be a night with her again? To be with my mother was the greatest thing to happen. I was going to go to America. I agreed to go, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I was doing this for my family. I had to be with her again. I got help from her even when she was in another country, but it was still really hard. Going through that dangerous desert with strangers, walking beasts. I was just a little girl. I was only 15. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was I was doing it for my family. Somehow I managed to survive. I could have been disappeared in that desert. I could have died. But I was lucky. I made it. When I got to America, when I saw my mom, I hugged her with all my might, afraid to let her go. Mama, and Mamita, I didn't want to lose my family ever again. It was the greatest joy, but I still felt sadness in me. I left my childhood back in Honduras. But now, here in America, I have my own family now. I have a husband, and I have my 2 kids. They're my happiness now. And I won't let anybody take them away from me. Nobody's gonna force me to live because I have fought for this here. I have lost my family once, and a second time, and I've seen them cry. But I will never stop fighting. I will never leave my happiness. This is my life, and this is where I'm gonna stay.
Melee. You have a nice house. A house.
I remember the first time I met my husband in El Salvador in high school. We're high school sweethearts, as people might see it. We conceived our first 2 daughters in El Salvador. My oldest daughter was born in El Salvador in 1995. After she was born, I was able to live in the USA in LA because that's where my father and his wife and my stepdaughter live. But sadly, she couldn't travel with me because she was very tiny, didn't have her papers. I was 23 years old when I moved to LA. In 1997, my second daughter was born. She was born in LA. I was sad that my husband wasn't there to experience her first day of birth because he was still in El Salvador. After a year, my daughter was 1, and my husband had gotten permission to live in USA. But he moved to DC because that's where his mom and a few of his brothers and sisters lived. After my hubby contacted me that he was in the States, I got really excited because that means we could be together again. But I knew I had to leave my family behind in LA, and I'm sure no one wants to leave their family behind. I'm like a duckling not wanting to leave mama back. But I had to sacrifice to be with my husband and raise my own family. When I arrived to DC, we had a small family. It was just me, my husband, and my second daughter. I adjusted to DC quickly because it's a small city. In 1999, the same year I moved to DC, my hubby and I got married. It was such a happy moment for us. In 2003, my first and last son was born in DC. I can't describe how I felt when he was in my arms. It was just indescribable. In 2006, my oldest daughter was able to become a DC resident. I always went to El Salvador to visit her a couple of times, but it wasn't the same. And when she came, I just felt complete with my family. In 2010, I was able to celebrate my oldest daughter, quinceañera. It was not traditional, and that's what I loved about it. She did not have a pink dress. She had a turquoise blue dress. And she didn't have a Port of the North. In 2012, I also celebrated my second daughter's quinceañera. But hers was more traditional. She had a pink dress. She had a Port of the North. Tenía 5 damas y 5 chambelanes, 5 couples. So I didn't like it, but I went through a lot of planning this party, but it's all over now. And in my life, I had to sacrifice a lot of things, but it was all worth it in the time.
Low battery. You want me to change it when it turns off? What's up, How is her leave? Let's go for a back.
I grew up in the parish of Portland. There were trees, rivers, houses, and little shops. My favorite place in Portland was Bainbridge, Jamaica. Life was hard, walking to school in the hot, dirty, sandy streets of Jamaica. Life in Jamaica wasn't sweet. My family was poor, and while most poor people didn't have a 9-to-5 job, they had to rely on their farms. I had a sister. Her name was Avis. As a child, Avis wasn't very outgoing, but she was smart. She was successful in completing her GC exam, which is similar to the SAT. Avis wants to come to the U.S. for a better life. She came to the U.S. in 1963, and 17 years after that, I came here to the U.S. in 1980. Immigration was such a long process. They asked you questions on why you wanted to come here to the U.S., and if they weren't satisfied with your answer, then they would send you back. When you would go to border immigration, they would check your bags for contraband, which is something illegal or something imported illegally. If they find you with contraband, then they send you back. Getting to America wasn't easy, but I'm glad I came here. I came here for a better life, and I got one. Just know if you want something better for yourself, you have to go after it. I'm just standing here in this cold white room, trying to mask my frightened face. I mean, this guy, he just wants me to move because it's that easy. I mean, yeah, I moved plenty before, but I have a 4-year-old daughter now, and my mother. Where am I going? Claudia's heart is being affected. The doctor's word interrupted my thoughts. It's not serious now, but it will develop to be. They stopped me cold in my thoughts. My heart dropped straight past down my stomach like a rocket. The clouded thoughts in my head cleared, and I miraculously knew what to do. I was no longer afraid. I wouldn't allow myself to be. After that, I tried paying attention,
but I just couldn't. So I just looked at his lip form every word so simply and effortlessly, yet have so much trouble making it their way through my ears. How much time do I have? I waited till he finished speaking to ask. I was scared, not rude. He said I didn't have to move tomorrow, pero que no me agarrara la tarde. The sooner, the better. I thanked him, I shook his hand, I told my daughter to do the same. Being sick is no excuse to being rude, and left. It's a bit past 2 in the morning, and I'm sleeping next to my beautiful daughter, who is as asleep as a sun, when the walls begin to shake like jello. I try to keep my balance as I get up. I run to her and I try to pick her up. I mean, my body is fighting against my mind, because I clearly know that I can't lift her up. My body is 90 pounds, hers is 70. I tried lifting her up. I know I won't do anything but hurt her, and despite it all, I still do. I tried picking her up. I tried lifting her up. I really did. I tried really hard not to drop her. But it seemed like at that moment everything was against me, and she slipped out of my arms. She's still sleeping. Of course she's still sleeping, because it's only been a couple of seconds since I started to shake. But the couple of inches of fall woke her up. We're walking a couple of miles to my daughter's school, because, you know, she is a bit overweight. The sun is shining strong when she begins to complain about chest pain. And you see, my family tends to have problems with their heart, so I took the bus straight home, straight to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, they stuck my daughter in a big machine where she couldn't move at all. A couple of hours later, they tell me to go home and that they'll call me to tell me the results of the test. They did as they promised. They called me and they told me to come to the hospital with my daughter. They stuck me in a cold white room and told me the bad news. The rest is told history. 2 months later, I was living in DC with my mother and my soon-to-be healthy daughter. I carried nothing more but them. Since then, nothing was too difficult. At least nothing for me, nothing that I couldn't handle. Nothing.